Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I'd just make a quick video talking about 10 different Dungeons & Dragons adventures that I've either ran as a DM or have played in as a player. And my hope is that this will give you a brief, spoiler-free overview of each adventure so that you can make an informed decision as to whether or not you want to buy the book and run it as a DM, or if you want to be in that adventure as a player. Because not all adventures are for everyone, and some people will enjoy one, while some people will hate that one. I'll talk about the themes the adventure explores, what the 3 pillars of D&D it focuses on, so exploration, social, and combat, and I'll talk about how the adventure runs in-game, so in reality. So, let's go. So to begin, I will talk about Descent into Avernus. So this adventure explores a lot of demons and devils and descending, like going down into a layer of hell. But it also has at the beginning, in like the first act, I would say, a lot of urban and a lot of intrigue themes where you're investigating and trying to figure out what's happening. And there's a lot of, it really brings your characters into that city. There's a lot of good backstory building in the beginning. So I'd say it focuses on all 3 of the aspects, and that depends on the DM a lot of the time, because in my experience when I was playing in it, the DM, they focused a lot of an Act 1, and it was really front-loaded with a lot of social interaction and exploration. And I was playing a fighter at the time, and I was like, I just want to fight demons, let's go. And so ended up kind of being not my cup of tea, but I think it's up to the DM to dictate that. If you have all of the players who are like that, where they just want to go down into hell and fight stuff, then they can kind of fast track the beginning. But if it's a group that enjoys that intrigue and social aspect of it, then you can definitely flourish that out. So it's really up to the DM to choose how they want to go. So that one's done. Next up is Ghosts of Saltmarsh. So I really enjoyed this adventure. But it's not necessarily an adventure all in itself. It is a compilation of, I believe, 5 older ones and like 1 new or unique one. And so that ends up being quite nice because they're all well established already. The themes are definitely nautical themes, so you're out in the ocean, you can have pirates, you can explore islands, you can be pirates yourselves. And there's some really cool faction interaction in the town of Saltmarsh itself, which is quite intriguing for me. It definitely focuses more on exploration, I would say, because they give you a nice big map to explore with locations throughout, and a little bit more combat. Not a whole lot of social, unless you really want to like delve into that, by all means. And how this adventure runs is that you basically have like a home base in the town of Saltmarsh, and then there's little adventures that are sprinkled throughout the locale that you can have your players go through. And there is kind of an overarching storyline that is presented within the book, but they leave a lot open for you to have a good time with, and I've really appreciated that because I was able to really customize the adventure to how I wanted it. So I was able to just kind of throw away all the background stuff and kind of tweak and change it. But it's really nice to have that all pre-built for you. You have like NPCs in a town and conflicts happening, and that was very nice to have. So I really enjoyed that one. Next up is Dungeon of the Mad Mage. So this one is a massive dungeon crawl where you go into Undermountain and you explore the levels and what is contained within. So definitely this focuses primarily on combat and exploration, but there is a lot of baked in social dynamics into each level and that transfer between each level. My players and we went to, I think we're down to like level 9, I believe. And it's definitely more high level play. I believe you start at 5th at the bare minimum. But it is very heavily focused on the exploration and the dungeon crawl aspect of D&D. So if you want that, great. If you don't really like dungeon crawls that much, it can get kind of tiring. And so it's always good to kind of spice things up. They can leave and go do something else, things like that. But it's pretty fun. It's fun to play in something like that. Next is the starter of that one is Waterdeep Dragon Heist. So I only ever played in Dragon Heist, so that's my experience that I'm coming from. I didn't read the whole adventure, but I know a bit about it. It involves definitely heavily urban themes. You're in the city of Waterdeep, and that's where a lot of the adventure surrounds. You go a little bit out of it, but not really. You're mostly in the city. And this is definitely more social exploration pillar focused. There's a lot of chit-chatting, talking, investigating, going to different locations, things like that. Not a whole lot of combat, mostly because there is something called the Code Legal, which is a document that you show the players at the beginning. Well, we were shown it, and it basically dictates all the things you can't do in the city. And so one of those things is like beating people up or like killing people. So if you have murder hobo players, they probably will not enjoy this. But it is definitely a very unique adventure and could be very fun, and it's very customizable for the DM. You choose a season with the players, and that kind of dictates a lot of how the adventure goes. So it's pretty cool. Next up is the Tomb of Annihilation. I read a decent amount of this, and was almost going to run it, and then I didn't. But this adventure explores exploration. You are going to a big jungle island, and you're trying to figure out there's this sickness that's happening, and you're trying to determine the cause of it. And some rumors led you to go to what's the island, to Chult. So it's very jungle themed. There's a lot of is it Mesopotamian, like Aztec stuff? That's kind of like the vibe. Very cool, very different, and it features heavily exploration and combat, in that you are on a hex map of Chult, and you are going from hex to hex and traveling, and the DM is randomly rolling things that are happening, and you're kind of unveiling the fog of war on this island. That's the coolest part about it. I wasn't able to run it. I think I got through the first bit, and then I had to stop, but it seemed very intriguing, and I'd love to try it again someday. Next up is Stormcake's Thunder. I have been a player in this up to a few levels, and this adventure is very quite standard, where that it's an epic adventure. You are trying to stop the end of the world with these giants that are coming. There's a lot more details that you'll find out through playing. I'd say it focuses mostly on exploration and combat, in that you are going to different locations throughout the Storm Coast. And I would say that if you really enjoy the Forgotten Realms setting, you'll be able to stop at cool locations and things like that and explore those together as players and as a DM. And how this ran is that we did the same thing. There's a lot of giants. It's primarily about giants, so things felt a bit samey at times with combat, but I think that it can be really, really interesting and cool. But it's a lot of traveling, a lot of exploring locations, and a lot of giant stuff, basically. The next is The Lost Mines of Phandelver. So this adventure is part of the beginner box, and it is the first adventure that I ran, and I highly, highly recommend it for newer DMs that are just starting out, because it has a lot of guidance and a lot of help, and it's very straightforward. It definitely focuses more on exploration. It has a little bit of everything, honestly. You can kind of customize it to what you want. And how the adventure runs is that they give you a starting point. You go to a small town of Phandelver, and from there you kind of explore and you see what's happening. And it's very well laid out in that the players can kind of do whatever they want, but be aware that there are a lot of like mini side quests that don't necessarily pertain to the story. So if you want to spend a lot of time at lower levels, and for newer players, you can definitely use those to explore and to kind of get a feel for the game. And if you want to just kind of fast track it, you can do this adventure in about 3 or 4 sessions if you just lead them along the main plot line. So it's very customizable, very forgiving, and very fun. So I recommend it. So Horror of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat, these are the ones that I'm least familiar with. I know they were released at the start of 5e's like life cycle, like way back, I think it was like 2014-ish. And they are definitely dragon themed, and I think they're more of like a standard fantasy adventure where you're trying to figure out what's going on with like this cult and stuff, and you are fighting dragons a lot. I'm not sure of the 3 pillars that it focuses on, because I have not had much experience with it, but in reading it a bit and understanding online is that there are a bit of problems with it due to it being one of the first adventures, and it was kind of in development and being written before the rules were finished, I believe, if my memory is serving me properly. And so the Horde of the Dragon Queen has a bit of problems, but there are articles and things online where people have gone and fixed it. And yeah, so if you want to have like the classic D&D Dragons experience, go for this one. Fighting dragons is awesome no matter what. So, and last but not least, certainly not least, is the Curse of Strahd. So this one, this adventure focuses on gothic horror, and what else? What's another theme? Mostly gothic horror themes, vampires, undead, creepy stuff. But it is really well put together, really well designed in that you're in a location and there are different places you need to go based on whatever you drew at the beginning. There's a part in the book, in the adventure, where you are given 3 cards that will hint you at what the things are that you're trying to find and where they are. And so the players can kind of go from there, and it really guides things. Instead of just bouncing around and kind of feeling lost, it really guides you as to where you go, where you need to go. And there's the always ever-looming threat of Strahd and his castle lording over the land. And it's just exceptional. I can't stop talking about it. I really, really want to run it again, because when I ran it for my friends, this was the first book that I jumped into, and it was a doozy, but it was extremely rewarding, and we still talk about it to this day. I really, really enjoyed that adventure. And it's nice in that it contains you in kind of a sandbox, so you're not just left to the whole world. You're left in this this tightly woven web of adventures and the land itself that can really be enjoyable for players. And so those are my 10 adventures that I want to chat about today, and I've taken 5 of them to give you my recommendations for what I think subjectively are the top 5 best ones for most folks. So let's see if this will work. Da-da-da-da. So my number 5 spot, if I could click it, there we go. My number 5 spot is the Tomb of Annihilation. Oops. Tomb of Annihilation. So this one just has a really cool, interesting theme. There's lots of fun stuff at the beginning. It's very focused on that exploration and the hex crawl aspect, which I really personally enjoy. So that's why I like that one. And the jungle theme is really cool, exploring ancient ruins, things like that. I find that really interesting. Very Indiana Jones-esque. My next one is the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which I was surprised by. I was expecting just like basically playing Diablo but with D&D, but there ended up being a lot of like factions and interwoven intrigue within the levels that I found really interesting, and it was cool to be able to run it and explore it with the players as we go. It was also fun for me to run, which is a big deal because the DM is a player too. My third top pick is Lost Mines of Phandelver, just because it is really well put together, really good for beginning players, beginning DMs, and also for veterans, because you can go in and you can really customize. There's so many resources online that allow you to customize it and spice it up and make it your own. It's also a great place to start because it also leads into many of the other adventures that are already there. So it leads into Tomb of Annihilation, it leads into Storm King's Thunder. It's a good way to get from level 1 to 3 in a fun way. Next up is the Ghost of Saltmarsh, which is cool because it's ships and it's pirates, and it's super, super fun. It's also cool because it is traditionally set in the Greyhawk setting, which is an older setting that's a bit more grittier, and there's kingdoms and rulers and things like that. It's not quite so high fantasy. It's more grounded. I'd say it's probably more of a Game of Thrones vibe, which is really intriguing to me. And my number 1 pick is obviously Curse of Strahd, because it is so fantastic. I love it so much. And yeah, it just has everything you could possibly want. I'd say the only con would that be it has that gothic horror theme, which can get tiresome at times, but if you can find some way to bring in some jokes and some comedy, even it mentions it in the beginning of the adventure, to make things kind of funny at times, to kind of lift it up, to not be so doom and gloom every time, it can really ease the tension of it. But chef's kiss, greatest adventure. So that's my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you some insight as to what the adventures are and how they go. I have not played or ran all the adventures, so these are just the ones that I know of a little bit about. Otherwise, yeah, please give me recommendations and leave a message in the comments if you have any questions. Please subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 people. Surprisingly, we have like 456 now, I believe. So please do that. Please like the video. Share it along to people who are interested in running games or playing in these adventures. So with that, have yourselves a great day and enjoy August.